Today's guest is an expert in artificial intelligence, how the world's biggest company actually builds it, and what happens to everyone else's job when it lands.
AI is a tool. Machine learning is a tool. You can use tools for good or bad.
He is the chairman of Alphabet, the parent company of Google. Before that, he ran Stanford University for 16 years.
AI is much more complicated because this tool is going to be used by billions of people. How are you going to prevent bad use?
John Hennessy, welcome to the TIE Labs podcast.
I'm so excited to sit with one of my oldest friends, and also the reason I'm here at Stanford. John, to get us started, one of my two favorite facts about you is one that you walk incredibly fast. I remember coming on a hike with John, and I just gave up midway. So I'm glad I was able to slow you down for today. And the second is the incredible love story you have with your partner for life, who I was very privileged to meet just last week. So I'm gonna let you tell that story in a bit. But I thought we'll begin of John as an undergrad. You graduated from university around the 70s?
I graduated from my undergraduate degree in 73.
And this was in Villanova.
Right.
Paint the picture what that was like. You had a degree in electrical engineering.
Yeah.
What was the world thinking? What were you thinking?
So I had a degree in electrical engineering. I'd actually gotten interested in computing. And in fact, my science fair project in high school was a machine that played tic-tac-toe. So I was interested in computing early on. But in those days, you couldn't major in computer science yet, anywhere in the US, undergrad. There were graduate programs had started in the 60s, but there were no undergraduate programs yet. So I majored in electrical engineering, but kind of focusing on the computer sequence, the thread, right? And I got involved. I had two really enormous experiences that changed my life. One was the opportunity to run a problem-solving session for people taking their first programming course. So I would help them.
Were you a TA?
Yeah, like a TA, CA,
Yeah.
like that model. So I helped them debug their code, figure out what was wrong, get down to various things. And then I, later on in my undergraduate years, I had an opportunity to be involved in an undergraduate research project.
Right.
And after that, I concluded I'm going to get a PhD and I'm going to become an academic. It's the best job you can possibly have.
Amazing. And was computer science like an up-and-coming topic, or were you like,
oh no, it was a field.
Nerdy people talking about it in school?
No, it was a field. I mean, when I got to Stony Brook, where I did my PhD, basically the founding members of the department were all there because the department had been founded I arrived there in 73, 74. And the department had been founded about 4 years earlier. So they were relatively new. Even Stanford's department goes back to like 64, 66.
Right,
that era.
around that time.
Right, that era.
Yeah.
Field was very new. The distance to the frontier of the field was relatively short because the field was so new and changing. And lots of technology was changing at the same time, right? The microprocessor had just been introduced. It was changing how computing was done in fundamental ways. So it was a period of great change for the field. But it was also, the field was much smaller. I could go to any job talk of an incoming faculty member or any PhD thesis defense and understand what was going on.
Right. So it wasn't like today
in computer science, there's no way. Well, no, and older fields, that's been true for some time. But in computer science, that's true today. There's just no way.
Yeah.
You defended in computer science a couple of 5 years back.
Yeah, 5 years ago, I did my PhD in computer science. So I think what are your thoughts on how the field has changed from since then to now with AI, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's all AI, or we should say it's all machine learning.
Yeah.
Right, because the big breakthrough in AI was that it's about machine learning. It's not about try to build in smarts. There were approaches that were trying to build knowledge in and then reasoning methods. It's about machine learning, right? And that has really transformed the field, and it's transforming the way everything is done in computer science. So people who design, I'm a computer systems, I'm an experimentalist. I build hardware, build software systems that go with it. All that now is being moved to being used machine learning as the key technique for building these systems. It's an enormous change.
Do you still think that computer science as a career path is viable still, like with all the AI? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. I think if you look at the data, while there's some anecdotal stories that beginning programmer jobs are hard to get, the number of programmers actually in the last year in the US employed as programmers has gone up.
Yeah.
So it looks like people are using AI, but actually there are many jobs for people who know how to use AI as a tool in their work, right? Which certainly programmers know how to do. It may change because clearly with the rise of vibe coding, people are able to get more productivity, more work done. Will there still be demand that sucks up that excess productivity?
Yeah.
Or will we hit a wall, basically, right? Is it elastic or inelastic? That's what it comes down to, right? If it's inelastic, you're going to reach a point where you don't need more people. You need fewer people to do the same work, and the needs don't expand.
Yeah.
I was also curious because you talked about this everyday life of, and I want to get to the new institute we're starting here at Stanford and the merger. But before that, what tools do you use in your everyday? How has that changed?
So I use Gemini, I'd say, every day now.
Every day.
I mean,
And what do you
basically
use
to
it
do
for?
something. Composing responses to things.
Right.
Letters that are more or less boilerplate, or even a letter where I'll outline, here are the 10 points I want in this letter. Create the letter for me.
Is it a better writer than John?
It's not necessarily better, but a lot faster.
That's right.
I mean, E.B. White has this great quote about writing. Writing is rewriting, and it just takes a lot of, you look at the amount of time. The two hardest things I've ever had to learn how to do were writing and programming, right? And those are things which practice makes you better, but it doesn't mean it takes a lot less time.
Yeah. So you use Gemini a lot.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah.
I see. So I think like one of the questions I was interested in asking is like, so about the Stanford's new institute, like, so the merger, so the Human-Centered AI Institute and the Data Science Initiative, like, so what sort of like led that merger, and like, what are your sort of thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, what really led it was the realization that, in fact, there was a tremendous amount of overlap, and these were not really two very distinct things, that there's a blending across, and even the people who are on the data science side who are doing more fundamental work, that work powers the people who are doing AI work. So I think we felt that these two things, they were overlapping so much. They were talking about hiring the same people, about appointing the same people, about going into the same graduate students. So it was just a diffusion of effort to split them into two. And what we had to do is figure out, how do we run an institute that's interdisciplinary, that's much bigger than any other similar kind of structure in the university, because there are faculty from every one of the 7 schools, plus the Hoover Institution, plus SLAC involved in it. So you've got to figure out how to deal with scale. There are, you're talking probably 200, 300 faculty, 400 faculty. I mean, so it's an enormous scale, like a school almost, rather than
That is true.
just an institute.
I know Professor James Lander talks a lot about human-centeredness of AI. And I'm very curious, yes, we understand human-centered, HCI was the big thing. And
Right.
how do you sort of visualize and envision this idea of human-centered AI?
So I think what we try to envision is AI that makes people's lives better, that deals with the things. It doesn't just replace people by finding AIs that can do a job, but actually makes their lives better. And one way to do that is to say, okay, how do we focus on the parts of people's jobs that they don't really enjoy?
Right.
Right. So you take physicians. They don't like charting. They don't like filling in insurance forms. They don't like. What do they want to do? They want to spend more time with patients, right? So can we build tools that make it possible for them to have more time with patients? Think about teachers. We don't like grading. No teacher I feel likes grading. And even could use real help in terms of lesson preparation and things like that, and maybe even help with tutoring, particularly students who are struggling in the course. Those are all things we can build AI systems to do to really improve. And guess what? The students will be better served and the teacher will be happier.
Right.
So I think when we think about things like that, that really reflect on society, the flip side of this is it's possible. AI is a tool. Machine learning is a tool. You can use tools for good or bad. And how we try to restrict the bad uses of AI is going to be a real challenge because, unfortunately, it's software. It's flexible, it's fungible, you can redeploy it, right? And it's different than trying to control, let's say, nuclear weapons, right? You want to control nuclear weapons, what you do is control the material, first of all, and a few very specialized devices that don't have obvious other uses. AI is much more complicated because this tool is going to be used by billions of people. How are you going to prevent bad use of it?
Yeah, I think like it's a really interesting point, like how like with open source AI models and how they're built, and like for us as well with our sort of work, like we use a lot of open source models, so cheap to deploy and quite cost effective. Like, what are your thoughts on that? I think like with the US versus China, sort of developing these two frontier models.
I think for better or worse, I mean, a couple observations. First of all, open source models have closed much of the performance gap. They may not be at the very leading edge of the foundational lab models, but they're close. They're very close so that's the first thing, that they are adequate for lots of things. And I think for universities, they're going to use open source models primarily because that's what they can afford to run and get a hold of. So we're going to have to find, and that does mean, as you implied there, that people could remove guardrails and use those models and tinker with them to do negative things if they wanted. We're going to have to do a better job of educating. I mean, misusing a model to do harm to somebody is still against the law. It doesn't matter whether you used AI to do it or some other way to do it. We're going to have to figure out how we deal with that from a legal perspective and protecting people.
Yeah, that is true. I think like the direction that US takes right now, it's quite important, like to sort of like compete with China, like in this space. Like, what do you think like US should do, like especially the academia side, like to contribute really well to the AI development, like where it's quite expensive to get compute. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think the right thing to do is to figure out what's the role that academia has in this revolution. It's not to build the cutting edge frontier models. That's not their role. Their role is to basically look at societal issues, look at uses of AI broadly in the scientific and other disciplines where those are legitimate disciplines that the universities do anyway, so we ought to be thinking about that. And we ought to be thinking deeply about the moral and ethical issues. Companies think about that, but it's hard for them. They're trying to run so fast right now that a lot of these deeper issues, which require time to reflect and think about, and don't come to the surface as quickly when they're running so fast.
I was curious, in terms of the breadth of companies that came out of the Valley, and also we have a lot of our alumni who are spearheading many of these companies. What do you think are sort of the one or two big questions that you wish companies building foundational models would think about, that they're really not thinking about enough?
Well, the question is, I think the real question, and this is an industry-wide question, is can we come up with some guidelines that we could establish that would at least reduce the possibility that the models are used for harmful purposes? And can we get an agreement among the key leaders in the field? Because I think that'll be much better. Trying to get a legislative agreement or an agreement through is going to be so hard through Congress because, well, first of all, technology is moving way too fast. And if you think about how long it takes them to get a legal change to occur, laws, and oh my goodness. And and the other problem is they'll freeze the technology at the wrong point while it's still evolving, and that's a mistake too. So I think trying to think about how can we get the companies to collaborate to agree to some standards that at least will reduce the potential misuse of the technology.
This is more of a philosophical question, but I think there's this assumption that there's an assumption there that companies will come together, that we're all we have an equal moral code, or ethically we're sort of on the same page of sorts. Do you think people are inherently good? Do you feel like if companies come together without a legal framework that...
Yeah, I think most companies would like to do the right thing. Now, there's obviously in some cases, some companies, there's tension between doing the right thing and earning extra revenue.
Right.
Yeah. And that will create tension. What's really needed here is to figure out how you prevent so-called bottom feeders, right? How do you prevent somebody from racing to the bottom to get the extra revenue, blowing up the constraints on it, and therefore leading to harmful outcomes?
Yeah.
That's what you have to do. Sometimes industries can grapple with this and establish that kind of guideline. I've seen them do it. Sometimes you'll get somebody who doesn't care, and that makes it much harder to do, because the other companies then say, well, he's getting revenue. I mean, I need to take the same shortcuts, and that's what we have to avoid. That's what
I think a good example of this was for children's screen time. I think children's rights was something that everybody came together and said,
absolutely.
Yes, we need to think about.
And we should have done it earlier,
We should have
even.
definitely
done it earlier, right?
I agree.
We didn't understand the negative consequences of social media, right? And that, in fact, by putting limits, we probably could have greatly dampened the negative consequences.
I agree. And I also feel like if we made good headway with that, the AI effects are going in a similar direction too, if you look at sort of effects of children. I was very curious, do you think it's still important to, write like handwriting and writing your essays by hand? This is this huge debate in the education school. Should we still be writing cursive?
My guess, as somebody who failed handwriting when he was in elementary school, I have.
Did you have cursive?
I had cursive.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you failed cursive.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I failed.
Okay. Curious about that time. Like, I mean, was there anyone like mentor or teacher that sort of helped you sort of like guide your like career? Like,
I had the most transformative, the teacher I had that really transformed my life was my ninth grade math teacher.
wow.
She did two things. First of all, she at the parent-teacher conference, right? Now you're in high school, so you're there with your parents and the teacher, right?
You're all sitting
You're
together.
all sitting together, right? And she says to my parents, John has a great mind, but he has a lazy brain. And she was right. Up to that point, I had gotten by in school.
Right.
I would not bother doing the homework, and then I get 95 on the test, right?
Were you like one of those smart kids that everybody didn't like?
Yeah, most people
I'm sure
didn't
you
like
had
me.
friends, but...
No. You're kind of all my friends later on are all nerds, right? So, no, I think, but I hadn't worked very hard. I kind of got by, and then I do fine on the exam, so it kind of didn't matter, right? And she said, I mean, that was a challenge. And she said, if you'll promise to work hard, I'll let you take geometry and algebra at the same time, and then you'll be able to take calculus in your senior year.
I love that.
So she did.
That's how she bribed you.
And that's how she bribed me. And I took them both. I did great in both courses. And, it was really, she challenged me to really push myself and master the material. And that changed my life, I think.
I think with the teachers, it's sort of this idea that you see a potential that you don't see for yourself. Like she saw this vision for you that...
Yes, and you encourage them to, okay,
this is
step it up.
And your mom was a teacher.
My mom was a teacher.
And she taught, did you go to the same school she taught at?
No.
Okay.
She, because we had 6 kids in our family,
Right,
so she stepped down from teaching after she started making babies instead, so...
And how was growing up with like 6 siblings?
It's a very different experience. You learn, it's a community operation to run a household with 6 kids right in it. And you learn how to share, having chores and obligations and things like that. But it's a great way to grow up. I don't know that I'd want to be the parent of 6 kids.
Right.
But...
You would do...
That's true. Like, yeah, I feel like, especially like this time, like everybody's learning AI, computer science. Like, what sort of like advice would you give, like especially for parents, like raising kids these days, like in the future, like what sort of like career advice or like career
Yeah.
advice you can.
I think he's asking this for himself. He has a 2-year-old.
Okay. So some things I think are universal. Reading is a superpower, right? I think reading is still and critical thinking, taking something, read it, and be able to reflect on it and get the key insights and understand what the key insights are. That's what AI has a harder time doing, and what people have to do. So I think those skills, intellectual curiosity, being curious about the world and wanting to learn more about things, those are going to be valuable lifelong assets and characteristics for anybody.
Amazing. Yeah, I think like sorry, go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
go for it.
So I think like especially down that route, like with LLMs, like with transformers, like I was just thinking like it's a bit hard to like integrate intelligence into it because there's no way that the LLMs can figure out like the consequences of what it's generating. Are you still betting on LLMs to like drive their change, or do you betting on some other?
Oh, I think LLMs are not the end of the road. I mean, they're, the transformer paper was a great breakthrough because it taught us how to do self-supervised learning, right? And the fact that these systems seem to know a lot of facts about the world is purely good luck. I mean, how does it know that the capital of France is Paris? It knows it because it's read it 100,000 times.
Yeah.
And probably it may have read something that was wrong, that was sort of historically old data, right? Or the capital of Japan is Tokyo, right? And it wasn't always Tokyo, it was Kyoto for many years, right? But it realizes that it gets the difference because it reads it enough times in the right way. But I think we're going to need the so-called push on world models really reflects the fact that if you want to reason about the world, you need to understand the world as a 4-dimensional environment.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, there's something I always think about as well, like what's next afterwards. But yeah, I think like for the next.
Yeah, I think we're almost coming to the end because I know you have a busy day ahead. But so we talk about learning in this podcast a lot, and a lot of the people we have are psychologists and teachers. And something we ask at the end is, how do we learn to love? Because I think with AI and all of that, I think the center is human relationships, and we're trying to flourish and make human relationships better. And we had a very emotional farewell for you last weekend. I was in tears, and you thanked somebody very special. I want to know, what have you learned about love, not from yourself, but from Andrea?
Oh, what did I learn? So I come from a family of 6.
Yes.
She comes from a family of 9 kids.
Oh, wow.
And you, at the level of cooperation needed when you
That's
get to
a
9,
different
is
level of-
large, right? But she had a very strong family ethic and bonding, and she still spends time talking to most of her sisters. 6 girls, 7 girls and 2 boys. So it was a lot of girls in the family.
That's like Little Women into like 5.
Yeah. But I think we learned a lot of the things. I mean, we started dating. As I said the other night, our first date was my senior prom.
Yeah.
Was my senior prom, and we both worked in the grocery store together, right? I stocked shelves. She was a cashier, right? And that's where we met each other. And I think our observation is, over time, if you can find ways to grow together, which we did. We had never traveled very much. Neither of us have been outside the United States. I'd been on, at the time of our first date, I'd never been on an airplane.
Wow.
So it was a different era.
16?
Our first date, I was 17 going on 18.
Okay.
So those were all experiences that we had together and become part of our connection, right? And we found things we enjoyed together. She comes from a family of artists, so she taught me a lot about art and the role that art can play in life. And
We have a lot of art at the
Yeah, we
podcast
do have a
now,
lot of
so
art,
We
yeah.
have Andrea to thank for that.
Yeah, so that was a great experience, and I think she taught me a lot about how to and we find ways to work together, right? You find ways to make things work, and you have all these experiences you shared over so many years.
And it's been 50 years?
52
52.
Yeah.
Wow.
We've been married, so.
And I think my last question before we wrap up, do you have anything else?
But yeah. I mean, I have so many questions.
You have so many
so many
questions.
questions. Like, yeah.
I think he's read, you read John's textbooks when you
Yeah,
were
right,
in-
exactly. Yeah. We're starting. Like, yeah.
I think my last question is, we talk about learning as something that's truly lifelong. We never stop. What is something new that you're planning to learn?
Oh, what is something new I'm planning to learn? Well, I'm constantly trying to understand how this whole AI revolution is evolving and changing. And I think we're going to see lots of new models.
Yeah.
And every time there's a new model out, I mean, there's a lot to learn about that model and how it's going to evolve over time. So I find that really, and to watch the societal effects of this
That's right.
whole AI revolution is really phenomenal to see.
I love that. John, thank you so much for slowing down for us and for making time. It's been wonderful to chat with you.
Thank you. My pleasure.